and I was watching this famous medium, and I had this really strange situation where I lost track of my body, which is actually what happens now when I do readings. I'm not usually aware. And I was in a dark room and there was someone sitting across from me crying, and I was telling them something. And it just was this very strange situation. And I remember this medium trying to be all friendly with me, and I was like, I just didn't want to give anything away. And I never sat with a medium before. So I was like, these people are kooks. And then it encourages me to reflect on what would I say if I came through as a spirit afterward, because there are no secrets.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Mel. I appreciate you coming on the show. So, I think we may as well just start off with how did you get into the business of being a medium? Where did that start?
Yeah, it's not actually the most well, it's funny in a couple of ways. I was an online marketing strategist before this life that I'm in now, which is really funny. I've always been really left-brained. So for 10 years, I was everything marketing, and I had my daughter, my first daughter, and I retired that old business. And I remember saying to my husband, I'll know exactly what I'm supposed to do in 2 years. And he was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And it was about a year and 8 months after I'd had her. And I was having all kinds of identity crisis because I was like New Yorker to Coloradan, no kids to being a parent, really physically fit to like postpartum recovery, and, solo entrepreneur to stay at home mom. It was a really tricky time. And I was nearing that 2-year mark, and I was like, what? I still don't know what the thing is going to be. So I took a girls trip. We ended up watching this Netflix series. And when I got home, I finished the last episode by myself, and it was called Are You an Intuit? And I was watching this famous medium, and I had this really strange situation where I lost track of my body, which is actually what happens now when I do readings. I'm not usually aware. And I felt like I was sitting in the seat of the medium I was watching. And when I looked down in my mind, I had like these old brown clogs on, and I was in a dark room, and there was someone sitting across from me crying, and I was telling them something. And it just was this very strange situation. And then all of a sudden I had all these thoughts coming into my mind, like, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for lifetimes, or I did this a long time ago. And of course, instantly I kind of had like embarrassment and shame and guilt. And I was like, what the heck, man? Like, I can't be a like, I'm just saying I'm an expert in one moment while I'm watching someone who's clearly been doing this forever. And so I thought maybe I'm just desperate to find a new identity because I'm going through all this stuff right now. And then a few more things happened. I became a past loved one. Became aware of a friend's past loved one. And long story short, don't give spontaneous readings, by the way. She's a very good friend of mine, and I asked permission, and she said, yes, tell me. And I told her something about her dad. And she's like, that was exactly how he was. And things just started getting kookier and kookier. I felt like I was in touch with my past grandmothers. So finally, I hired a couple mediums. And I was like, all right, let's see if these whackadoodles can tell me anything about this. I'm just going to sit here. And I was the worst sitter in the world. So for anyone, if you don't know what a sitter is, the person who sits with a medium, right? And there is such a thing as like sitter etiquette, of which I did not know. So I'm just sitting there with like resting bitch face on. Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like really deadpan. And I remember this medium trying to be all friendly with me. And I was like, I just didn't want to give anything away. And I never sat with a medium before. So I was like, these people are kooks. Let's see what they say. And both of the ones that I hired brought up a conversation I'd had with my grandmothers, the father that I had brought through, like all the things that had happened. They were like, oh, we can see that you've been hearing from your paternal grandmother. And I was like, what? It was crazy. And so I thought, maybe I'm not insane. Maybe I don't need to be institutionalized. At that point, I asked a woman I'd met once. I was at like a mama meetup with my baby, and I went over to her and I was like, I mean, I probably should have realized that this seemed pretty strange, but I was like, hey, my name's Mel. Would you like to come to my house while I try to do a reading on you? And luckily, she was she was a wackadoodle herself. And she was like, oh, I love that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And I thought, who am I bringing into my home? So we're like in my family room, the next week. And I said, by the way, We're just gonna sit here for 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure jack shit's gonna happen. And then we'll just see, we'll sit in silence. You can go home. She was like, okay, that's fine. And so I just kind of cleared my mind because I'd been doing meditation for years. Um, and it's the way it comes in for, most mediums. I just thought, oh, I feel like there's something here. Oh, wait, there's two people here. Oh, this feels like they were women. Oh, I feel like it's on mother's side. It was like one thing after the other. And it was all true. It was like I saw her grandmother dangling this necklace with a circle on it. And I was like, "What is this?" And she burst into tears and said, "Oh, I've got that necklace at home. That's the necklace my grandmother gave me before she died with her wedding ring on it. Or that's my grandma's shawl. I'd never washed it. It's on my chair at home right now." And so I remember, I don't know, freaking out during that reading. And at the end, we had like an ugly cry session together. And I was like, well, I wonder if this is real. So then I just kind of went from there. I decided to give 100 free readings. I think that was about 2 weeks after this, I sat my husband down. I was like, "I think I'm gonna fly to England and go to this school." And he's English, and he was like, "Wait, really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, we better get childcare then." And the rest
Oh,
was
you
kinda
mean
history.
to Hogwarts? What's the name of which school was it?
Yeah, AFC, Arthur Findley College.
Oh, yeah.
I know, 'cause
Oh, my God.
he's hilarious. He's between, like, agnostic and atheist. It works amazingly for us. He's, like, the best human I've ever known. And it was funny because he was like, "Why are you gonna go to some school for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, it's your people." And he was like, "Okay." I'd give a reading and I'd tell him that, and I go, "What do you think about that?" That's what I always say to him. He goes, I believe you." And that's about all he has.
I was thinking that, if the marketing thing hadn't worked out or the mediumship, you could have done stand-up comedy. So,
I
yeah.
tried that in New York City when I lived there.
Oh, yeah?
It was horrible. My friend was watching in the audience, and she was the only person laughing. It was like, it was uncomfortable laughing. It was like, I want this to be over so fast that she started having, like, nervous laughter, but it didn't really encourage anyone else to laugh. It was a horrible moment for me. But thank you. That's so nice.
Oh, yeah. Alright. What did I'm just gonna write notes in here as I go. Now, you said that
Yeah.
when you're doing the readings that you lose track of your body. What did you mean by that? Did you literally can't feel your body anymore? Is that
I don't notice it. Like, right now, I
right?
notice my body. I can feel how my elbow feels on the table. I can notice my hair is tickling my arm, things such as this, or, like, the wind
Yeah.
from my fan. If I'm giving a reading, you don't I have no it's not like I forgot I have a body. I'm like, "Oh, what am I?" It's not that, but it's like I have no notice of it, and then all of a sudden, the reading's over, and I feel like it's been 5 minutes, and it's been 50 minutes. So it's just being unaware of, I would say.
Right. So it's like the input from your senses, your normal bodily senses get sort of dialed down by the sounds of it. And I
Yes,
guess
and then
it
your
kind of makes
clair
sense.
senses light up.
Yeah.
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 Or
Yeah.
even if you were not to be a medium, but let's say you wanted to meditate. Have you ever meditated before and you feel like it's only been 2 minutes and you're like, "Oh, I've been sitting here for 18 minutes." You know?
Yeah. Maybe a couple of times I've had that experience. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you did 100 free readings. Do any of those sort of stand out where you go, wow, I'm actually better at this than I thought I would be?
Well, the very first one, that one I told you about, that
Right.
was wild. That was wild. And then, I tell clients all the time, "By the way, do you need me to clean up my language? I can do that." But,
No, 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 no.
uh,
Yeah, I
okay,
always
I call
I untick the box for, yeah, this is okay for kids or something anyway. So you say whatever you want.
Okay, great. Well, it's
Yeah.
because that first reading I told you about, was my holy shit reading. Because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is real." It was like everything I believed about the world all of a sudden felt like things work very differently than I realized? And, then I've had what I call shit show readings. In fact, in my book, I talk about this and, like, how to navigate a shit show reading that doesn't work out. Any medium who tells you they never have those, everybody has those. Even the best mediums in the world have those because you don't have control over everything, right? It's from spirit, through spirit, to spirit, and those are 3 factors, and you only control your own. So, sometimes those things happen, and you have to navigate that kind of situation. You know what I mean? Um, oh, no, tell me what the question was, Rod. I have baby brain right now.
Um, It was well, actually, no, you answered it. It was about what was your what was a standout experience that you had for those 100 readings?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say this, that first one was standout. And then you go through mediumship development cycles, where you have things are really clear and then all of a sudden they get kind of fuzzy and then they're really clear again. But you sometimes can do more, and my development circles came really fast. And so I feel like a lot of things would come really clearly and then I have a little period of time that was kind of fuzzy and then they'd come clearly again. And so there were certain readings that were really, really challenging. And then after a while, it got to a certain point where I felt confident, like, okay, if I'm going to sit down with somebody and read professionally, I feel that I can give a high quality reading 90% of the time, you know? But there were some readings in there that were tricky. I had a woman who wanted me to read for her family. And I was like, okay, so you're assuming they want you to read because somebody died. And I was like, "Well, I know your grandfather and your mother's side is here, so miss, this would be your dad." And she was like, and she burst into tears, and I was like, "Okay." And I was telling things about her dad and all this stuff, and this went on forever. It was really confusing. And all of a sudden I was like, do you guys own a farm? Is this something about a farm? And they were like, then they all start crying. And I was like, I was giving a reading about the farm because they're gonna lose the farm. And so then I was like, I've never given a reading where it's like she didn't really care about talking to her dad. She wanted to know what's the outcome of the farm going to be. And I was like, all your dad's saying is it's just a farm, like don't shoot the messenger. But it was wild. So I had all kinds of different experiences where things would come more easily or not as much. And sometimes my students will ask that question, like, is it easy to read every medium? But like every reading's different. And every once in a while you get one and it's pretty tricky. You can't hear them or you can't really feel them as clearly. So that can happen. And that did. But by the time I got to 72 readings, I was like, oh my God, I was getting like a dozen calls or text messages a week at that point. And so I was like, I can't do this for free anymore. So I think it was around reading 72 because I have a whole journal of all of them. And then I started reading professionally after I talked to a mentor. I was like, is this ethical? Can I do this? And she was like, well, if you're accurate 90% of the time, and that's my guideline I gave myself and I give my students. If you're going to give a reading, 90% of the time, the reading should work out and be like a good quality reading. And a good quality reading, a great quality reading would be that maybe, 80, 90% of your evidence is accurate.
One of my great friends, Nikki Allen, who's I'm sure you've heard of, the medium from the UK. Um,
Yes.
she often has what I see when I see her sitting down uh, to kind of connect with spirit. You can even before she does that, she's like, "Go away," like, "No, I'm not ready. Just stop saying that." Do you find that you kind of are you able to sort of go, okay, well, everyday life, you don't sort of hear anything. Do you have to actually like get yourself in a certain state to start getting messages through, or do you find you
Yes.
kind of get interrupted sometimes too?
You know, all these things are possible. It's like a spectrum and it's different for other people. But for me, I have really, really strong boundaries for whatever reason. I just, I feel that spirit wants us to be humans and be here. And, you know, I think sometimes in the spiritual industry, people can get pretty high up in the clouds. I'm a very grounded person. I like the left brain. I like logical. I like numbers. I like stats. I like proof. That's why I like evidential mediumship. So for me, most of the time it's as simple as being like, if I'm not getting paid or I'm not teaching or I don't want to connect with spirit, you'll have to wait for me to turn my light switch on, which is what I do in my mind when I start a reading. I don't want to see everybody's dead people. And here's my other thing about ethics. I tell my students, when you give a reading, it's like walking into somebody's room and opening up their journal and reading it. That's what it is. Whether you're reading mediumistically and you're with a spirit or you're reading psychically and you're reading their energetic field, you are going into someone's personal life. So I have a really strong boundary. However, what's really funny is that when I sit in meditation before a reading, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I got a dad here. And I'll be like, just wait, just wait. And if I say my opening intention, sometimes I'll lose my chain of thought and people think I'm a super dingleberry because I'll be like in the middle of a sentence, and all of a sudden there's like, I know somebody's trying to come through. So I have to tell them to wait. Really, it's dogs and grandmothers that seem to be the worst, they'll just butt in, or like a lot of barking in my ear, when you're trying to focus. But for the most part, they know I mean it. And dead people are the same as living people. If you're somebody who knows how to hold a boundary, have you noticed that like living people will be like, oh, they mean it. She means it. I'm not going to mess with that. Dead people are the same, you know? So
It, it,
that's kind
it
of how
seems
I
like
view it. And
sorry, it seems like there's when you said that your light goes on, uh, I've had a lot of conversations like this, and it does seem like it's almost like on the other side, you're kind of waiting. You kind of, if you want to get a message through, you got to find somebody who's got that channel, right? And then they're few and far between. And then the way I imagine is they're like, oh, I can get a message through to her. So as soon as that sort of becomes apparent, I can imagine if they're really keen to get a message relayed to someone, then they're going to start bugging you at that, at that
like
point.
moths to a flame, baby, like
Yeah.
moths to a flame. I tell my students that. I have this one student. She's so sweet. She's like, every time I try to go to bed, there's all these voices in my head. And I was like, listen, listen, moths to a flame. You got to shut that shit down. Like I'm not telling you to like close off all your energy centers, but instead of having like this wide open, cone being like, oh, you're like a spiritual antenna, you've got to close it down, do something after your reading to imagine it all being swept away because what we're doing is we're working with energy. And so it's supposed to come through us, but we're not supposed to take it on, unless you really want to, which I don't. I have
Yeah.
enough of my own energy stuff to deal with.
You mentioned pets. Heather Mays, I just had to look up. Heather Mays is a medium I've had on before, and she's really does the whole pet thing. Well, she does people now too,
Yes.
but she originally did pets because she really didn't like people very much.
I
So,
can understand that.
what's interesting experiences have you had with pets from the other side coming through?
Oh my gosh, I remember one of my first, out of my first 100 readings, I would not consider myself like an animal communicator or really great with pets. But what I would say is when I did this reading, I remember reading for this woman and she had like a grandmother-like figure came through and I was like, she's obsessed with her dog and they're together now. So her dog's passed. And she was like, yeah, that's true. That's true. And we have this hardware store in my town called Jax. Okay. JAX. And I was sitting there and I like all of a sudden she started showing me the hardware store in my town. And I was like, Jax, Jax, interesting. And then I saw the letter M and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." I like went through a few things. She was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know why letter, I don't know what it was. I brought some things across, didn't make sense. So I just continued on. And at the end of the reading, after I'd kind of said all these things about this dog, she was like, oh, she loved that dog. Its name was Max. And I
Yeah.
just thought it was like this super interesting way of her dog showing me, and the woman showing me these different things. And I was like, when you see those and it's like an eye and then it's like a heart and you're supposed to put together a sentence based on the images. It was like the dog was playing that game with me. And I must have been really slow because I was like, in retrospect, that seems quite clear. Like Jackson and M. Oh, just take out the J, put the M in, which I didn't do. But it just was really funny that the dog was sharing that. As of late, oh my gosh, I've had some really sweet things. I've had a couple dogs come through. The last 2 dogs that came through, they've just been like, you know, barking like crazy, and a few of them was talking about it's his final moments before his owner had to, have him put down. It was so sad, I was like, I knew that I was whimpering. I knew that she had, like, touched my head a lots of times, and I knew that, I wanted to tell her that it was understandable. I was in a lot of pain, all these different things. Um, and I'm not somebody who, like, has pets right now. I love animals, but these are people whose pets are like, children to them. And so it seemed very cathartic. It was, like, really emotional for them, and I was kinda like, "Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so overwhelmed by this dog and all this whimpering and all this?" So they give me some of the heavy stuff sometimes, because I
Yeah.
know I'm gonna tell it like it is.
So you said before that you don't want to take it on like you're a vessel that the message comes through, but it
Yeah.
sounds like there are times where that dog was an example where you really do feel those emotions yourself as well, and it's not as simple as just sort of relaying what's being
Mm. I
relayed to
always
you.
feel the emotions. I
Mm.
always feel the emotions. It's never that I don't feel them. But one thing I talk about with my students a lot of the time is I have this prompt that I give them. where I'll say, if you're feeling a really strong emotion and you don't feel like you can hold a professional space for your sitter in that moment, you need to ask one question. Well, two, what's mine and what's theirs? As in like, what is my emotion? What is the spirit's emotion? Because sometimes people think they need to do all this voodoo to figure that out. But even awareness helps us understand what's happening in a moment. So to say what's mine, what's theirs, I can be like, oh, this is the spirit's emotion, you know? Um, because most mediums are empaths, and most mediums are empaths with horrible boundaries, if I'm honest. And so it's very easy for them to just take emotions in. Like I had a student once who said she was too anxious during the reading. And I said, well, I can tell that you didn't feel anxious when the reading started. And she's like, oh, that's right. And I was like, that was the spirits. This was a suicide. And she said, oh, I thought it was mine. And I was like, what's yours? What's theirs? You have to be self aware enough to know that if you didn't start the reading feeling that, then it's probably has nothing to do with you.
Mm.
So it's just, I feel it all the time, but um, it's kind of this intention, because intention is so powerful with this work that you don't take this on, you know? I had a reading with a mother once who had lost one of her 3-year-old twins 6 months earlier. And my
Right.
daughter was 3 at the time. And it was really intense. And when it was strange, like I went kind of like a stone the whole time. I think there was something in me that knew that all the space had to be for this parent and not for my emotions. So I brought that through. It didn't shed a single tear. And then when I got off, I did everything. I took a shower, I cried, I did a workout, I went for a walk. I had to do all the things. And then I told Spirit, I'm not bringing through children until my kids are like grown up, you know? Um, so there's different times when those emotions affect you differently. It's never that I don't feel them, but I think we have to be really conscious of what's ours and what's theirs. And then that makes it a lot easier to be accurate for one, but then not to take it on as much. And
Mm.
you still might have to, cleanse at the end of a reading in whatever way you do.
I think I must be a bit of an empath because I'll burst into tears at the drop of a hat. Um, do you find
Commercials.
that yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes it can be, like those, I forget that there's this YouTube channel, I think it's called Guitaro 5000, where he gets people to sing, like, just come up and say, "Sing for me," like, sing for free, sing with him.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
occasionally you'll get these people that are like, they're not professionally trained, but they're just amazing and, stuff
Yes.
like that, yeah.
No, I've
Yeah.
seen those.
Uh,
Oh, it's
but
so sweet.
I'm sitting here by myself and text my wife and say, "I'm just bullying at this video." She thinks it's funny. Um, so, but sort of, I was getting somewhere with that one. Do you find that the this sort of gamut of emotions that you often are facing that might be a little more intense than everyday life, do they kind of help you sometimes with processing your own shit, so to speak, things that you've got going on? Do you find that that is up, or is it really a separate kind of thing for you?
For me, it's very separate, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't I was laughing. I wouldn't necessarily say that the emotions I feel from a reading are more intense than my day. I mean, huh, I'm an emotional person. I live life fun. It's like very I feel so happy at this point in my life to be like my version of Zen, but my version of Zen would never be Zen to anyone who actually is. You know what I mean? So I have strong emotions and I love them. It's just I love people so much, or I get really enthusiastic or things like that. So sometimes I feel like I'm got a lot more emotions than the spirit does, but I would certainly say when it's a heavier reading, right? When it's like apologies that need to be made or the certain way that someone passed that's really significant. Yeah, that's much heavier than what I would go through in a day. But you know, I feel that there's a certain amount of, I would say, healing that comes to the medium that we go through. We're given a certain amount of perspective. When you talk to somebody who's hearing from a past loved one, it puts your own concerns into perspective, I think.
Mm.
And it also reminds you that there's something after this, that this isn't everything. And in all reality, I coming to believe that we're kind of a speck of dust and maybe everything we worry about here doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, it matters to me right now as a human living my life, but I also think it's healthy to take things into perspective. And so I think that's what mediumship really brings me is a sense of peace. And then it encourages me to reflect on what would I say if I came through as a spirit afterward, because there are no secrets. I always think way before I was a medium, but especially now, I always think anything that I do or say, if it was going to be published on the biggest paper in the world or it was going to be videotaped and shown to everybody, I want to be able to stand behind who I was in that moment. And
Mhm.
everything is videotaped, but even without it, knowing how much we are all one consciousness, it's like you walk into a room or you talk to somebody and they're telling you something and you can just feel that's not true. Like there's no hiding in this world. Everybody can see everything about me that I think I'm covering up. I've learned that now. And so I'd rather just be as open as I can about it. Um, so I think that is a really important gift that it gives me, but I don't know that it's kind of a direct thing from any one reading, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah. Do you get many people asking about you mentioned something, the group was about the farm. Do you often get people asking about future events, like how things are likely to play out? I know some people are gonna be looking for what exactly is gonna happen, and I'm pretty sure that's not quite how it works. There's, like, different timelines for things, but you often get that kind of question?
I don't because well, remember I'm a marketer too. So my website is extremely clear. I don't actually offer paid psychic readings. Could I? Sure. Why don't I? I don't really know. I just know that I'm really focused on exactly how do I want to use my spiritual gifts and how much time do I have to do that being like, a parent of 2 kids under 4 right now. So I know the specific ways I want to do it. It's very clear that I offer mediumistic readings. That is when I'm connecting to a past loved one. It's not a psychic reading. It's not predictions about the future.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, in the UK, it's interesting when I've studied there, psychic used to be a dirty word back in the day. And I'm not sure that in the UK, if making predictions is even legal to this day, which is really fascinating. But people do ask me that from time to time. Usually I instruct them quite clearly because I know how I want the reading to go in terms of like logistics. So I'll say, um, all you have to do is sit and listen. And at the end, if you have questions, or you want to tell me more about context, then you can let me know. But I'm pretty clear with my sitters to say like yes, no, maybe to what I bring through because I don't want them feeding the medium because it really robs them of their experience, right? Of me bringing through information that I couldn't have possibly known otherwise. Um,
Mm.
but sometimes people are like, I remember one time I had this reading and I was like, oh man, your dad's talking about estate plans right now. It seems like an absolute mess. Like this is chaos for you guys since so and so passed. And she's like, oh, so she starts nudging her daughter and she's like, well, tell me about it. Okay, well, what does he want us to do? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, he's just saying that sucks. Sorry. And like, there's probably not going to be a very good resolution to this, if I'm honest. Like, I don't have much of a filter, but honestly, when spirit comes through, they're not like, oh, here's what you should do for the estate plan, or why don't you go get a divorce, or yada, yada. They're not going to tell you that. It's like, we came here to learn lessons. And if we get up, then that's our problem, right? So it's kind of like when they ask me some of those questions, I'm just like, I guess this is your next life lesson. I'm not getting anything right now. I just know he's saying, sorry, that estate plan is a big shitty situation. That sucks. Acknowledgement, you know? So sometimes people don't like my answers.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't tell them to ask them that often. But it also, this is the other thing, Rod. It feels contrived. It's kind of like I like to sit here and let spirit bring through whatever they're going to bring through. And then people are like, do you know when I'm going to get that job? It's like, listen, if they didn't bring that up, it's probably not their first priority right now. I can tell it's yours, not theirs. They don't care about the job. Like they love you, sure. They don't care if you get the job or not. Or, a lot of times they will be like, yeah, something's coming. But if that doesn't come through for me initially and they're like, will I get the job? And I'm like, let me check. Yeah. I just think it seems a little more contrived. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. It seems to me that the other side doesn't matter if they're past loved ones, higher beings, whatever, they're not really in the business of robbing us of experience, the wisdom that comes from experience. So it's like,
That would defeat the
go,
entire purpose for
yeah,
why I believe we came here,
yeah, yeah.
right?
So the guidance on what to do seems like that's really limited or pretty much non-existence. Guidance on how to be, that's a kind of a different thing, but what to do, yeah, it doesn't seem like that's
Spot
going to
on,
be a thing.
sir. I really like how you put that though, like how to be versus what to do, you know? But I mean, we ask ourselves this, like, if you believe that we live multiple lives, which I 100% do at this point, um, why do we forget? If we've been here a bunch of times, why can't we remember all the lifetimes, right? I firmly believe at this point, we forget so that we can have a beginner's experience every time,
Mm.
because it's a far more effective way for soul evolution for you to learn something than it is to come back and be like, yeah, I remember how it happened last time. I'm just going to go through and do what I did before. Like, how effective is that? It's not. So
Yeah.
I think that goes in line with the same thing of people being like, could you tell me all the answers? And I'm like, no. Is there anything other questions you have though? Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I think you need to figure
Yeah.
those answers out yourself.
Well, it's like the
Yeah.
metaphor of the poker game, right? You're going to play poker with all the cards up. I mean, that's like, there's no game. It's
Agreed.
done.
Agreed. Agreed. And I
Hand them
think for a
over,
lot of
becomes a
us,
thrill.
right? And as a human, at least in my experience, I can only speak for myself. I like having revelations and aha moments and learning about the things that I did wrong. I actually very much enjoy this because then I can feel that I'm growing and I'm obsessed with growth. I love that. I love learning ways to be more efficient so that you can love harder and not do as much stupid shit. I'm waiting for the year when I don't look back and get embarrassed about myself, 6 months ago. But maybe that's not the point, you know? I don't know.
Um, in the back of my mind, when I first got in contact with you, I thought, oh, it'd be cool to get a medium. Now I understand your mediumship mainly entails connecting with past loved ones. I know it's taking a while to set this up. Now, I have a younger brother who died a long time ago, and it was so long ago that I I sometimes I don't think about him very often. Other times I do, but um, I was just wondering how you felt about whether you could see whether he's around or whether he has anything to say.
I actually feel more of a father figure for you that comes forward right now, if you can understand that.
He could be a grandfather. I'm actually adopted, so I don't know if my biological father
Biological
is
father
alive
is
or
living.
dead. Yeah,
It's really
don't know.
interesting because I feel father figure. I don't think it's a grandfather. I feel it's actually a father figure. Then I feel like I hear
Right.
dad, dad, dad over and over again before we even get on this. But sometimes I'm not always aware of people like your younger brother, for instance, until I'll start into a reading. Because a lot of times for me, those younger people, sometimes they come through partway in the reading when someone else, like buffers it in that way. But, you know, if you want me to do something live or like spot on, which or on the spot is what I'm trying to say, what I would rather do is I would connect psychically first to kind of start reading things about you and then see if stuff about your brother comes in. If you want me to try
All
that,
right.
I can.
Yeah, cool.
As
Yeah,
long as
I'm
if I look
definitely.
like a total douche canoe, you can always edit it, okay?
Oh my god.
Okay. So if I went
Yeah.
so what I did with Segi was like what I call the free for all, which I never get to do and it's so fun. So that means if I work psychically, I'll be reading your aura. Okay.
Yep.
So that's your energetic field around your body. If I'm reading mediumistically, that means I'm with a spirit. They're at different vibrations. And
Hmm.
so ethically, I need to tell, if your brother's saying one thing or bio dad, which I don't know. Well, I'm not going to ask you anything. It's probably
You
that
can
you
ask
don't
me
know much
whatever you want.
information about.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
Oh,
like, when
sorry.
I'm reading,
I
I
see what
won't
you
be
mean.
asking you
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So wherever things are coming from, if I feel like it's a guide, if I feel like it's a family member, if I feel like it's, um, if it's psychic, then I'll tell you that, okay?
Yeah.
So
All right. Cool.
I'm just gonna
I'm excited.
start out by blending with you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Hold on a sec. All right. I can't get, I'm like trying to get away from this yapping dog over and over again, but I know that I hear this as well. So it's really interesting. But the way this comes across is that it's possible. I just feel like you love animals. Like you love, like, I feel like you're playful. And so you would like animals, you would get along with them really well. But I do feel like you come across as a dog person. I feel like there's got to be a past dog over here, but I also feel like it's possible there's a living one as well. Do you understand this so far?
Okay, so my wife currently has a cat, and I grew up with dogs. Yes, you're right. I'm definitely an animal person.
Definitely an animal person, but there has to be at least one past dog or more because I have like tons of barking here in my ear. So I feel like that has to be something when it's interesting, but I feel yap, 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 yap all around.
Yeah. Well, we had a poodle when I was a kid, but on the farm, it was a yapper.
Okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't remember being very close to dogs and things because farm animals tend to be kind of a bit separate. But then as an adult,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely, yeah, it was different.
I just feel like I'm hearing this yapping and it feels like animals are a thing that's been around you at least at some point in your life. So that's just a kind of an interesting thing. But I also feel, what do I feel? I mean, you come off very friendly, so that's not like rocket science. Um, But I have to say that I feel like that's always been an approach for you where you're like a quietly curious person a lot of the time. Um, because you would have always liked to ask questions or just been kind of like, I'm gonna say this in a nice way, like nerdy about things, about like
Hmm.
always being
Yeah.
curious about people, things. I don't feel that being spiritual is something that's come to you like as of late in your life, although you may have pursued it later. But I always think that there was some kind of interest in you, um, in terms of like the other side or the world of mystical things. Do you understand that too?
Yeah. Yeah. Nerdy
Um,
interest in the other side for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it just feels like all the time that that has definitely been a thing. Also, I do feel a grandfather figure now too, but it makes me feel like you would have had a grandfather figure that you would have been, closely connected to when you were younger. Do you understand this?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because it makes me feel like I have that and I start to feel like, "Oh, that feels very paternal." Like, it wouldn't have been a grandfather you didn't meet, it would have been someone that you were much closer to. And I have a really loving feeling from him. He has to be passed. Feel like more on mother's side. Do you understand that too for a grandfather that you would have been close to
Yes.
on mother's side?
That's it.
Yeah, because right
Hmm.
away he shows me your mom, so he'd like, "Oh, this is her." That guy feels like really sweet. And I actually feel like there were activities or things that you would have done together, like that kind of grandparent who plays a really lovely role in your life. I know that there's a dog here. You may not have been close to the poodle. You don't have to be, but they will come in and yap, 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 yap. So that has to be something else too. Uh, okay, really interesting. Do you understand as a child also? I'm starting getting all these impressions that there would have been times for you that I'm like, did you grow tall really fast as a kid? Because there's something about you that makes me feel like, um, I'm a kid, I'm lanky, and sometimes I would feel like kind of lonely or even like excluded as the nerd. Would you understand this? I hope I'm not making it up. And
Yeah, or
it's
maybe
makes
there's two
me,
things in one there because definitely I did feel that as the nerdy aspect made me other, apart from
yeah.
everyone else.
You would I see you standing apart from other people from a certain way, but it's related something to, like, physicality as well, like that like, a period of when, like, kids grow fast, not as coordinated or something like that, there's, like, a period of
Hmm.
time where I feel, like, lanky, I feel othered, I feel like the more sensitive one that doesn't quite fit in, doesn't want to do, like, the macho thing. Do you understand this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there was probably a couple of years there that makes sense. Where I was kind of like the skinny one, and then I was like, right, I'm going to do something about that. And then all of a sudden the hormones kicked in, and then that was no longer an issue for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I just feel like that was a certain time, but it comes across in this way, and the only reason it would come across in this way is that that would have been significant enough for you to look back, at this point in your life and still remember that that would have been a significant time for you or a time where you felt othered in that way. Um,
Mm.
Let me just see what else I see here. Okay, so it's really interesting because in terms of your brother, the way that I see him is I feel that, your grandfather makes me feel as if the 2 of you would have been together, like, he would have had time with grandfather as well, that you 2 as
Hmm.
kids would have spent time together, and you're talking about I don't know, did you say that you were on a farm or something? Because this is when I
Yeah, I grew up
see,
on a
like, I feel
farm.
like I'm around animals. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm around the animals. I feel like I'm with your brother. I feel like, first of all, when you're with your brother, this is like much younger. Okay. So the way that I see this
Yes.
is like under the age of 10.
Mhm.
And, your brother would have been a lot of fun at the same time because I actually feel like he was really funny. And it's one of you or him who wants to get into lots of mischief, kind of like leads the way in this way, who's like, um, I just feel like I'm running around outside. I'm always up to the next thing. Uh, I see cows. So did you have cows at the farm too?
Yep.
Okay. And, like sometimes I'll see things. Well, I feel like there's a stool there, but I feel like I'm running around weaving between animals in some kind of way. And I'm not sure that was always the best thing, but he makes me feel like I'm weaving around between animals. I'm like, and I'm making lots of noise and all of them and like getting things riled up, that kind of thing. So this is the kind of memory and that I feel I can see from the past. Do you understand what I'm bringing through so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
he
very
just
accurate.
I think also that you 2 got along quite well, which you know what? I feel like the sense of your brother comes stronger and stronger to me, which he would say a lot of that had to do with you. Because this guy, your brother makes me feel when he was younger, like I said, mischief maker, lots of energy, funny person.
Mhm.
Whereas like for you, he says that you could be a little more compliant is the best word that I could say. So if he wanted to get in trouble, you'd go along with it. But I do not feel like you were the kind of brother who would ever like rat him out for something. Um, I feel like you enjoyed your time with him, and I don't know that he was even the older brother, but there was still a sense of you looking up to him in some kind of way. Would you understand this?
Mhm. Yeah, 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 as he got older. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he was always fun to be around. I mean, I feel like the fun never ended. Um, you understand, I keep feeling like I'm getting new ideas, and they don't always feel like they're the best ideas. Because I think this guy would take risks. He was more of like an adventurous type of person, And it's not
Yeah.
that you weren't into that stuff. I think you would do that, but I still feel that you are more grounded. It's kind of like I see like a little kid version of you who still makes me feel as if that they would be a little more reasonable is the way that that comes across. Can you understand? Um, Also horses too?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. You would have ridden them if you can understand that, is the thing. And your brother he rode the horses too. That's for sure. Cause I feel like this is something else. Uh, I just keep getting the spirit of a guy who naturally was free spirited and wild, liked to have a good time, would take certain risks is the thing. And he keeps
Mm.
bringing up this idea of risks over and over again that he would do this. So it's possible that that's significant. Um, hmm,
Well, he climbed on the roof once when he was about 2, and
yeah, that
mum
sounds
couldn't
like,
believe it.
oh my gosh. Oh, I know that he sends a lot of, well, that's interesting. Hold on. Let me check something really quick. Living your path. Living your Okay, it's interesting here. You mentioned earlier that you were adopted, but it does make me feel like there's a mother figure here for you as well. Do you understand your adoptive mother being passed?
Sorry, yeah, I'll just clarify. So it was just I've got a stepfather, if you like. My mum is still my mum. It's
Okay, great. But she's passed.
no,
Okay, gotcha.
that's that
Um,
would be yeah, that's not it. She's still around.
okay, I understand.
She was 17 when I was born.
Oh, interesting. So the way that your brother says it though is you understand your mother never recovered from your brother passing, is the way that this
Yeah,
comes across.
yeah, that
I mean,
makes
even to
sense. Yeah,
this day,
she still feels it.
it's
Yeah,
still the thing.
yeah.
Which of course she still feels it, but what he says is that never really recovered from it. So it feels a little bit more significant than that, if you can understand. Which
Mm,
I know is true for a lot of parents. So a lot of times they'll bring that up and just say to pass on to her, like all the love that he
mhm,
has. So that's something else. But the thing that comes to me the most from him is just all the memories that you guys would have had. Also, the thing that I'm saying about you, which is really interesting. So this would be more psychic than from your brother. I
mhm.
just feel like I'm spending a lot of time outside. So after your brother passed, you still would have spent a lot of time outside. If you moved from the farm, you would have returned there certain times. There have been times that you go to the farm where you have certain memories of your brother there, and you like to spend time specifically outside too, like, you can be very nostalgic about it, where you feel like you've sensed him or you felt him before. And that quiet time outside, I feel like I can smell a farm still. And I feel like there must have been times after you passed where you would go and you would have sat alone and been there and recalled times that you would have had with him. Do you understand what he's bringing through or what I'm feeling
Mm.
too psychically?
Um, I never really thought about why it is that I do like to say, even though I live in a big city, but I really have to get outside like at least once in the day and go to a open
A
space. But
quiet place.
yeah, yeah, and it's great because is exactly what it is. It's very quiet. There's no one else walking around lunchtime around here.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I was an adult. I know you don't want. I shouldn't give away too much, but
No, no, that's
I
okay. Go
was an
for it.
I was an adult when he died. So he was 6 years younger than me. So when he was 17 is when he passed away. So I
Sure.
was an adult away, and I'd moved out of home at the age that he was then.
Yeah.
And mum and dad had already moved away from the farm too. So I could never go back there. I wanted to, but I could never actually go back there.
But the way this feels to me is still that there's something about being outside and having to be in the quiet a lot of the time where I feel like I have to do that a lot of the time and whether you realize it or not, it feels like it's very much of like a reconnecting type of time for you. Like I have to get outside, I have to do the quiet thing. You understand that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I never really thought about it like that, but it makes total sense. That's why it feels like it's just something I just have to do, and I always feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a bit deeper than just being out in nature. It was, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Exactly. Those are some of the main things that come to you right now. I'll just see if there's anything else. Yeah, the main things I get about your brother too just keep being the fact that he feels like more of a free spirit and that he feels like more of like that energetic person who likes to um get out there and have a good time. The way I feel from it too is that it was a short life lived, but it would have been really spectacularly fun. I mean, I feel like there was such a close relationship between the two of you. Um, is the way that that comes
Mm.
across as well.
Yeah, up until I left home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we were really close. Because I've got another brother as well who's in between the two of us, and I was
Hmm.
close to Mark. Well, Mark would I understood Mark. I never understood my other brother. I still don't.
You never understood the both the one who passed,
Not really. Yeah, we're just like
how he was so
I know,
wild and
I
crazy.
did. No, I understood Mark, who's the brother who
Him.
passed, but my other one
Mm.
who's still around, yeah, I still don't really understand him.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, we all have siblings like that, don't we? Um,
Yeah,
I'll let you know if anything else comes to me. It's sometimes it comes really fast. Sometimes I have to like sit there for a while and lean into it. And I feel like this would be one of the ones where I have to sit a little longer and feel
yeah,
into it. But I know the thing that comes across the strongest is all this time like spent on a farm where I feel like I can smell animals and I feel like I'm running around like a wild child and having the time of my life. And a lot of times spirit will bring through some of those things that would have been their most cherished memories that they would have had with you. So that's how
yeah,
that comes across for me.
yeah. We used to haul him along. When I say we, my brother. So imagine like I'm 10, Mark, who's one who's died, would have been 4. So he was always doing things way ahead of his time because we would be dragging him along. Like he'd be riding a bike way too big for him, and we put a
Oh
cushion on the bike
gosh.
so that he could sit on it. He's down a hill, can't even balance yet, and
Oh my gosh.
so climbing up a pine tree that's 40 feet high, 50 feet high, and he's only 2, so he can barely walk. But we'd like hand him from one to the other as we climb up the tree. You know, no,
That's why it makes me feel like maybe that's why it makes me feel like risk taker. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, they were calculated risks, but there were things that Mum probably wouldn't have wanted to see us doing with him. But we always,
I'm
he
pretty
always came
sure.
back one piece. Um, there's a kind of a question in my mind which popped into my head was, oh, maybe there's no reason, but like you say, his life ended when he was quite young, 17. And I was always curious. I guess that was the plan, but I was curious about why that was the plan. But I don't know if the answer to that will come. It's just one of those things that popped into my head.
You know what I have found over time, like speaking to different spirits? It's really interesting because the more that I learn, the more my, my the way I perceive of this changes. But a lot of the time when spirits come through, and this is the way that it feels with your brother to me, is like there was always going to be a certain amount of time that they were going to be here. Um, and it feels to me for your brother that it was always going to be a shorter period of time, is the way that it comes across. Um, but it's interesting because the other day I was listening to something. They were talking about how a spirit goes through a life and there's, different on ramps where they can get off. They could take, oh, do I want to take my first exit? Or do I want to stay until the third one or the fifth one? So I'd heard a different medium talking about how everybody comes with 5 different exit ramps, you know?
Mm,
Um, and I think that very much could be the case. I feel like we understand that when we come here, we have free will, right? But there are certain like monumental places that maybe we wanna get to, and there's a whole matter of different ways that we can get there. But the other thing I understand sometimes is that timelines can change, right? So, like, let's say that you do wanna stay a little longer and you don't get off till on ramp 5. Or maybe you learned what you wanted to learn and you wanna get off earlier. And I'm not the kind of medium who pretends that I know all the reasons because I don't remember being over there. Like, I haven't had a near death experience, at least not yet.
mm,
But and so I feel like what I've come to understand is that when people learn a certain thing or have a certain experience they came for, then I feel sometimes the soul takes the earlier exit, or they come here and Earth School feels like too much. That the spirit knows, okay, I need to get off on this on ramp. But
mm.
that's what I've heard so far. And I don't know for sure, but I feel like there are certain times where this comes across and says, if it wasn't going to be this, it would have been something else because this is the time that I was set to leave.
Mm. Yeah. Um, why don't you tell us, like, people are going to want to know how to get in touch with you, Mel, and we'll put all your links in the show notes.
Sure.
But tell us about what you provide. This you can pitch whatever it is that you do now, so
Sure.
people know so people know.
Yeah. Well, 2025 has been a really big year because I had a baby and then I wrote 2 books and then I created 2 courses. That's my first book that's out. My next one's coming out January 13th. And it's kind of interesting because I kept having people write to me and be like, will you provide marketing for mediums? And I was like, no, no, I'm not doing that anymore. However, my new book coming out is called The Profitable Spiritual Medium: How to Make 6 Figures and Beyond Talking to Dead People. So that is happening. I actually just finished the course today. It's launching January 13th, and I will finish my part of the publishing process by Friday this week. And then I'm having a half spa day to celebrate the birth of 5 babies this year, really. So those are the big things. There's the When Spirit Speaks book, the Profitable Spiritual Medium, and then both of those are also programs that I run now, um, which is at mediumshipwithmel.com. And I do readings, but a lot more now. I'm teaching more and I'm writing more because I'm very prolific when it comes to content. So that's some of my favorite stuff to do right now, is to teach other people how to sense spirit. And also, how cool would it be if more people who were empathic and humanitarians made a living doing this work? Because I think the 25th percentile of income for mediums in the 25th percentile is like $37,500, which is only $5,000 above the 2025 poverty line in the United States.
Mm,
So there's a
yeah,
lot of people who are
it's like a side gig.
extremely, yeah, they're like extremely gifted at this work, and yet, um, you know, they can't make a living doing it. So
Mm,
I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But then I feel like I just kept getting this pull and this pull, and I was like, oh, I'm totally supposed to do this.
yeah.
So those are
Well,
the things I'm up to now.
yeah, it's definitely needed. I talk about my friend Nikki Allen again, because when I first met her, she'd
Yes.
had her YouTube channel for 5 years, and at that point, well, I won't talk about any numbers, but she was not making any money at all, and she'd been doing it for 5 years. I was like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
I'm not going to take any credit for where she got to, but we were able to fix a lot of things that wasn't quite right, and then, but it's amazing. I guess the main point I'm making is, like, and 3 years later, she's now doing really well. So, and she almost quit at that point.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for doing things in the right way, which is great way writing that book. And then sometimes you just got to keep going as well. But get things right, but just keep going too.
Yeah. I did my 10 years of just keep going as an entrepreneur, and I learned
Yeah.
so much. So by the time I got here as a medium, and I share this just because I think I think people don't talk about money all the time, especially women. And,
Hmm.
majority of mediums are women. And a lot of
Yeah.
the jobs that have been female dominated throughout history have been lower paid. So that's also one of the reasons, like, that was where my focus was as an online marketer. But in the first 12 months, I could make six figures as a medium, giving readings and
Mm.
teaching one development circle. I do 9 readings a month. I teach 3 development circles a quarter with 14 people in each circle. And that'd be like
Yeah.
$107,000 right there, working 28 hours a week and having my kids and never working on nights or weekends. So
Yeah.
I put that in my
Yeah. It's
book
awesome.
because I was like, I feel like why shouldn't mediums be able to make a living doing this? It's like the most life-changing work I've ever done. So,
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I remember the first time, one of the very first early mediums that I read was it Laurie Spania who came on. Laurie Spania. Is it
mm,
Laurie? Anyway, that's definitely her surname. And I went and had another like follow-up consultation with her. And I'm pretty sure at the time, 1 hour was like 500 plus US dollars. And I was like, wow, you go. Like, that's amazing. You can charge that sort of money. And she's like super busy. I thought that's really
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
All right. Well, we're kind of, I don't normally finish at any particular time, but usually around about an hour. Is there anything
That's
you
great.
wanted to leave people with when they're watching this?
I do. I feel like right now in the world is a time where we can always use, like, hope and inspiration. I mean, there's a lot of division in my country right now and in the world, and I feel like mediumship really brings something to the table that gives us that perspective that I was talking about earlier. Um, for me, mediumship focuses unconditional love, forgiveness, and this profound awareness that we really are all connected. And so that's one of the reasons that I practice it. And I feel like the more that we become aware that we're all one, the less that we feel like we have to be an us versus them type of thing. So I think that's what's called me so much at this time. So I'm glad that there's so many people who are waking up right now to their gifts. There's like a lot of people who come to me who are like, oh my gosh, I'm having all this stuff happen and it ends up being true at the end, and it's wild. And I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a lot more people that in a darker time have no better thing to do except to gravitate towards something that is toward the light, start to become more aware. There's always going to be crazy humans who just decide to not be aware of things, who decide to cling to like the ego or all those, that dark side. But I feel like something really great is going to come out of some of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now. And I know that's what I needed to hear, and that's what I keep kind of hearing from the spirit world. So I'll leave people with that so that they have something to brighten things up if they're not feeling that at the moment.
Well, Mel, this has been really fun. Um, keep doing
Thank
what you're
you
doing.
so much for
Yeah.
having me. I'm so grateful and honored, truly.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been my honor to meet you, and maybe we'll have you back again for a live stream.
That would be so fun. I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Okay.